Hey guys, I am the 50s Kid. This is a 2001 Nissan Altima, and it's got a very loud, noisy water pump, and I'm going to change it. So as you can see, I've got the front of the vehicle jacked up and placed on jack stands, and I'm going to drain the radiator. There is a drain plug, which is right here, and I'm going to put my drain pan right underneath that, and that drain plug is a Phillips number 3. Alright, let's go ahead and put the drain plug back in. That way this thing doesn't continue to leak or dribble all over the ground. Because I'm going to move the drain pan over underneath the water pump now. So right now we're looking at the back of the air conditioning compressor, and if we look right above that little tube right there, the metal tube right there, is running to the back of the water pump, and that's a little bolt on the back of it that'll allow you to sort of drain the coolant from there and just bleed out the rest of the coolant or drain out the rest of the coolant in the engine block. So I'm going to loosen that and drain what I can into my drain pan as well. Here's a better shot of that bolt from up top. Probably a little easier to get to, in fact. So this is probably the place where I should have drained the coolant from to begin with, and not drained it from the radiator at all, because this is draining out the lower coolant hose, and by draining out the radiator, you're just draining out everything from the upper cooling hose, basically everything before the thermostat. When the engine's cold, the thermostat's cold, so it's going to keep all that coolant in the top of the engine, top of the radiator hose. This is just draining out everything in the block. I'm going to put that drain plug back in. So just taking a look here. The water pump is underneath the alternator, so it looks like I'm going to have to remove the alternator in order to just get access to it. Go ahead and get this out of the way here. The way we do this is there's one bolt down here. It's a 12 millimeter. And then there's this bolt here, which tensions the alternator. So by removing that, we'll be able to get the belt off. And I'm just going to tuck the belt back because this is the water pump down here. And that's the noise it's making just when I spin it with my hand. When you turn the engine on, it howls. Before I go any further, I'm going to disconnect the battery negative cable. I'm going to remove this adjuster from the alternator completely with this nut. So now I think I will disconnect these things from the alternator, this harness here. I'll disconnect this sucker, get this loose, get the battery positive cable loose. I think that's a 12. And this is the main reason you're disconnecting the battery, because once this is loose, if this touches any metal part of the car, you short circuit the battery. So that's why we do that. Looks like there's one more back there. That's a 10. Looks like there's another power harness that goes down. And it just kind of pulls out from the back of the alternator. And there is a 14 millimeter fastener down here. There is another 14 millimeter fastener on the back of the alternator. Tell you, on this car, there is enough room to get nothing out. I think I'm gonna have to take these brackets off. Okay, I want my alternator. See if there's just enough room now to bend this stuff out of the way, hopefully. Yeah. Hey, yay, mine. So I removed this bracket. Connected that right there. Removed the 12mm fastener here, and this was able to just sort of pivot. I also loosened this one down here, but you can't get it out because this engine mount nut is in place, or this engine mount fastener, which I removed as well. Didn't need to though. Just got that loose enough to make this, get this loose and hold the alternator out. So it looks like I've got no choice in this situation. This is one of the bolts for the water pump there, and there's a bracket right in front of it. That's the lower alternator bracket. So I have no choice. I'm gonna have to remove that. And it looks like, just to give myself some more room, I'm gonna remove this engine mount right here, just because, you know, it's a pain in the butt doing it this way. So there are 3 14mm fasteners. I've already got that one. I already had that one removed, but that's where it went. You know, might be a good idea to put a jack underneath the engine before you do that. The shorter one goes in the back. So I can remove this 12 the rest of the way. Get that stupid bracket out of there. Just tucking the belt up out of the way. There are 2 17mm fasteners, one here and then one back up here behind it. And they are on there. They're on there really tight. Other one's right about here. That's one. And that's 2. I believe we're going to have access to all the bolts. I'm going to need to get these loose. And now that I'm looking at it, I'm wishing I did that before I took the belt off and the alternator off. So, duh. That's a lesson for you. Don't do what I did when it comes to that. I'll figure out something though. Okay, we're gonna try a rubber strap wrench. I think that will solve my problem here. My 10mm wrench. Hopefully be able to crack these loose. Yeah, looks like that's working. Everything always goes wrong when you're recording or when you've got a friend watching. Those are the 2 times when things just don't go your way. So here is the new pump, and we can see just how dirt simple it is. Looks like we got 6 fasteners around the perimeter. That one's longer. So that top one is a little longer. That one is also longer. That one is shorter. That one is longer. I'm going to use my deep socket. Yeah, perfect. And that one is a long one as well. So it's just these 2 ones, these 2 front ones that are short. And no, I don't have my reservoir under there because the jack's in the way. And it's just that that oil seal that's making a mess. I mean, it's not sealing out oil, but that's what it is. It's basically just a seal. It goes in between the bearings somewhere in there. I think the seal is on the inside, bearings just behind it. Yeah, that's what was making all the noise. You don't want to get your belts wet with coolant, so I probably should have taken them off. You can see there's some gray RTV around the perimeter there. Now, my new water pump came with a gasket. The old one doesn't seem to have it. And I know that this was the factory pump because this is a first owner vehicle. This vehicle belongs to my mother, and I know we've never had the water pump changed. So, that's interesting. I think I'm going to use the gasket though. I have a gasket scraper that I'm going to use to get the RTV off. I'm going to spend some time doing this. I'm going to get all the RTV off, but you don't need to see that. I'm going to put the new water pump in. This is the gasket that it comes with. It's just a paper gasket, and I'm kind of on the fence as to whether to use this gasket or to use RTV. And I think what's deciding it for me is this little corner right here. This is a very thin spot right here where the RTV would go, and I'm kind of nervous as to how well, you know, it'll seal well, but you know, I don't know. I'm on the fence here, and I'm gonna try using this gasket, and I'm gonna see what that gets me, and hopefully I don't have to redo this whole job. Honestly, I think you can go either way. That's probably what it's gonna turn out to be. And well, really need to not drop the bolts or the gasket. I'm just going to get that started a couple of turns. Same for this one. And looks like my gasket is in position. These two bottom bolts are trickier to just get in place. Cool. I think one of the ways I can think of to check for leaks is to just add the coolant back in at this point. I'm going to filter it just in case anything fell in there. So it's looking good so far. No leaks yet. Of course, might be a different story once we start the vehicle. Put this pulley back on. I'll end up tightening the bolts down once the belt's back on. Put these two really big bolts into this bracket here. Get that bracket back on. Those were the 17s. Okay, those are really tight. Let's stick this alternator back on. I believe these two were my alternator bolts. This one with the two washers, I remember, went on the front. So I'm just going to put those on finger tight for now till I get the brackets back on. So this one has these two 12s that fit it into the side of the engine right here. And you got this bracket, which goes like this. You slip the cruise control cable into it. Actually, that's the throttle cable. There's this big 14 millimeter. And there is a 12 millimeter nut. Goes right here. Let's put these cables back. They go up and over like this. Just snap that one back on. Put this bolt on. It's a nut. Put the positive cable back on the stud. Put the nut over top of it. So it looks like I broke my little coolant temperature sensor right here, so I have to go get a new one before we finish the job. There's this little 10 millimeter nut with the Phillips head on it that is, I believe it's a ground cable, back of the alternator. There is another 10 millimeter nut which goes here. This is not the original fastener. Forget what happened to it. It's just a replacement. This actually didn't need to come out of the bracket. This could have stayed in the bracket right here, but I was just getting everything out of the way. Keep that loose so I can tension it. Move the alternator in that way as much as possible so I can get the belt back over it. Yeah. Tension the alternator and the belt. That looks good. Tighten this. Use my gear wrench to tighten the pulley bolts down here on the water pump. There we go. Let's tighten up those lower alternator bolts. That's the one on the back. Those were 14s. Let's put the engine mount back in. Last thing. Oops, upside down. Ooh, and yes, I remember now that this bracket needs to be out if you want to get this bolt in, which is just typical. There, stupid bracket out of the way. So there, put the engine mount back on before you put this bracket back on and tighten it all down. Sorry about that. Coolant reservoir goes back, and that's it. So I'm gonna go get a new one of these and then hook the battery back up. Then we'll be able to test it. Okay, let's replace this coolant sender is what it is. I'll put some Teflon tape on it. Not a good idea to use my impact to reinstall this. All right, moment of truth here. Damn it. Well, that did not work at all. Okay, as you can see, I've got the serpentine belt removed at this point. I just want to eliminate all of the engine accessories. You got, no more alternator, no more water pump, no more power steering pump. Everything's disconnected. Let's see if the noise comes back. So yeah, I feel pretty dumb at this point. I should have thought to do that before I even started the water pump job, because that would have eliminated the possibility altogether, or confirmed it. So again, this is more in the series of what you shouldn't do when you're diagnosing a problem. At this point, I don't really know what the hell it is. It definitely sounds like the noise is coming from that side of the engine where all those accessories are. So the only thing I can think of at this point would maybe be the timing chain, something inside there, or maybe even the oil pump. Basically things inside the engine, and sometimes I do feel like the noise is inside the engine, especially since I've tested the components on the outside, on the back side of the engine, everything. There's nothing there is the obvious sign of the noise. It does sometimes feel like it's an internal engine noise, and it's just the sort of pitch and frequency that you can't really pinpoint exactly where it is. It's just a very pervasive noise, and it's very hard to localize. Anyway, my mother does not care about this noise, and it goes away when the engine warms up, so probably for now we're just going to leave it like it is, because it seems like it's too much trouble to track down, and I'm not that damn curious. So anyway, thanks again for watching.